The following morning, Sharky stared at him and Mouse in shock. "You're going where?" Her voice was shrill. "To do what?" "Infiltrate the training facility in the mangroves," Mouse calmly repeated. "And you didn't think it was important to mention that to me until now?" Mouse dipped his head. "I thought it was of primary importance not to mention my mission to you until the last moment." Sharky sputtered with so much rage that for a minute, not a single intelligible sound came out. Then, she whirled toward Xander. "You taught me that power and rank are nice, but true friends are more important." He nodded. "And you think this is how a friend should treat someone they say is their BFF?" Dame Esmeralda stepped between them. "You may not agree. Actually, at this exact moment, I know you will not agree, but accepting this is the best way you can prove your friendship with Mouse." Sharky vibrated with so much rage that all her hair stood on end and her back arched. Esmeralda ignored her battle-ready body language and continued to speak calmly. "The mission Mouse volunteered for is dangerous, and our information says that there is a strong anti-cat mentality there. How well do you think you would do if you were living in the area and the friendship you shared became known?" She cocked an ear and some of the starch seemed to go out of Sharky's fur. "This will be our very first mission of this sort, and it is crucial to give it the best possible chance of success. Besides, it is not going to last forever, merely 4 months, to determine if it will work." 4 months is forever, Sharky muttered, but her body language proclaimed that she was starting to accept it. Simon, Mouse and Xander arrived in Port Antonio before noon. Simon and Xander spent several hours watching the training facility's activity from the boughs of a well-placed flame of the forest tree, while Mouse napped on the ground. For the first time in his life, Xander thought that Dog's inability to climb a tree was a disadvantage because Mouse was unable to utilize Vantage Point. One thing Xander had not counted on was the fact that his humans had moved Whispering Winds off the dock and his home was now anchored near Sea Paws, in the harbor. He wasn't sure if he was more annoyed about the fact that they had moved his home without his approval or if he was primarily annoyed at the challenge of getting home without getting wet. Shortly after twilight, Mouse said, "It's time." But instead of marching the block downhill to the veiled entrance of the facility, he continued to sit, unmoving except for chewing his lower lip. Xander realized that the puppy must be afraid to move forward on his mission. Xander tilted his head. "Do I need to push you?" "No." Mouse sighed, as if accepting the inevitable. "You need to come down here and hit me, and Simon needs to do that limb walk thing to get to a safer place." "Beg pardon? You heard me." Mouse's eyes narrowed. "Did you think I could just walk down there stinking of cat and get a good welcome?" He woofed in disgust. "Cats do not stink," Simon said. "You say that because you can't smell your own stench, yet I bet you can smell dogs." Mouse snorted in disgust. "Well, guess what? You cats smell as bad to us as we do to you." "I doubt that, but I will not sit here and debate the issue. Now that the sun is down, it's time for me to head to the bus station." Simon tilted his ear in the direction of the market. "Riding on top of a bus is best done at night." Xander nodded. "If I'd known the schedule, that would have been my first choice. And a lot better than landing in rotten fish guts. Don't doubt that cats stink. Believe it. I have always been straight with you." Mouse glared up the tree. "Simon, please move along. Once this begins, there will be a lot of dogs down here, and believe me, you don't want to be noticed or have your movements watched." "He's probably correct," Xander said. "This is his mission, and getting back to the survey is mine. You need to get back to Kingston." Xander batted an ear at an unseen biting bug. "Good," Mouse said, "then we're all agreed on who needs to do what, so get your tail down here and hit me." "Fine." The boy wanted him to punch him, he would. Xander quickly climbed down the trunk and aimed a half-hearted swipe at Mouse's big pointy ear, but the pup easily avoided it. That was pitiful. Even worse than that so-called demo we gave the babies. Mouse snorted. "What?" Xander snarled. "Oh, please, do you expect me to believe the great kamikaze can't fight better than a month-old puppy?" "I didn't want to hurt you." Mouse laughed. "More like you didn't want to show how a real fighter moves." "Maybe that, too." Xander studied Mouse, and realized that the pup figured the best first impression he could make in order to be accepted by the mangrove dogs was to be involved in a cat fight. Look, I really don't want to hurt you. This mission is important to Dame Esmeralda and do not tell me some self-righteous blather. I thought this through before I volunteered and this is my best bet. Yeah, I might get hurt, but so might you. Is that what you're afraid of? Are you trying to make me angry? Is it working? Not really. Then perhaps this will get you in the mood. With a lightning quick move, Mouse pounced on him and, if not for his extensive training, nearly managed to sink his teeth in his neck. Xander managed to leap backward, just in time. Mouse spat out some fur. Xander's training kicked in and, with a war whoop, he whirled free of the sharp teeth, continued the turn and kicked Mouse in the side. The puppy yelped in pain as he fell, but by the time Xander had his paws centered, Mouse was in a fighting stance. A flock of parakeets that had been settling into the boughs of a nearby tree took off in panicked flight. Mouse growled and lunged. Xander easily sidestepped, noting the puppy was favoring its left side. Good, the kick had done its intended damage. Xander faked to his left, then kicked the already injured side. Mouse howled with pain. Distant howls answered. Is this what you wanted? Xander asked. Yes, Mouse said, as he lunged forward, his teeth missing Xander's ear by a breath. Xander used the puppy's own momentum and flipped him, so he somersaulted away. Meanwhile, Xander moved so he was in position to get a glimpse of the gap in the mangroves from which dogs were streaming. You got your audience. Better make it look good. Mouse lunged at him. Xander screamed in pain and terror, even though the painful bite got no closer than the one before. In another moment, the dogs would be upon him. Later, with a leap, he vaulted a patch of mint, then quickly climbed the flame of the forest tree he had previously used as a lookout post, scooted around the trunk and moved into a convenient breadfruit tree. Once on the far side of that tree, where he could not be seen by the pack, he again moved out onto a branch, which intersected with the branch of another flame tree. By the time the pack was howling at the base of the first tree, Xander was 4 trees away. Still, he kept to the shadows, and looked before he moved. The ignorant dogs formed a circle around the tree trunk and howled. Satisfied that their attention was in the wrong direction and that Mouse seemed to have achieved instant acceptance, Xander turned his attention to the dilemma of getting home and staying dry. He spotted a board lying on the shore, which looked like it was the right size to use to surf, then saw a large red plastic bag, which the wind had apparently blown against a bush with big pink flowers. Good, there was a strong breeze from the right direction. Plan made, he quickly climbed down the far side of the rough-barked tree he was in, and made a beeline across the road toward the beach. When the dog's wailing didn't change in pitch, he knew his seal point coat had, again, masked his movements. Xander grabbed the plastic bag, then with a bound, landed on the board with enough force to send it careening into the bay. Grasping the bag the way Merlin had taught him, Xander held it into the breeze and sailed the plank close to whispering winds. He dropped the bag on the still floating board, then leapt aboard the stern and headed toward the bow to watch the dogs, who were still screaming for him to come down from the tree. Whiskers twirling with delight, he watched the pack howl at the base of the flame of the forest tree, where they were ignorant enough to believe he was trapped. As he rounded the cabin, he spotted Valentine on Sea Paw's front deck, his attention on the pack. Xander made a big production of stretching, as he hailed the boxer, "What's going on with your friends?" Valentine jumped, and collided with a black plastic bag, which was, again, lashed to the front deck. "What are you doing there? Aside from having a good nap ruined?" Xander doubted the dog could see the bits of dust and bark on his fur in the increasing dusk. "You left days ago." "Yep. When did you get back?" "A while ago." "What did you do? Swim? Do I look wet?" Valentine frowned as he peered across the water. "Where's your girlfriend?" Xander shrugged. "She was just a girl, not my girlfriend." He pointed an ear toward the howling pack. "You're the one with the girls after him. So, how come you aren't over there with them? It sounds like they've treated a raccoon or something. I thought you liked that sort of thing." Valentine shook his head so hard that globs of slobber big enough to be seen in the waning light that dotted Sea Paw's untidy deck. Xander was glad their boats were no longer tied together. The mutt was a cleaning challenge. "And how come all the trash is tied on your deck, again?" "What?" He tapped the closest black bag. "This," Xander nodded. Valentine woofed. "These are medical supplies and an operating tent." Ha, looks like trash to me. Your deck looks better without that junk there. How do you know it was gone while you were gone? Xander snorted. Just because I've been straying out of sight does not mean I can't look out a porthole and keep track of things. Pretending ignorance, he asked, how come you need that stuff? Not your business, Valentine growled. Fine. The moon began to rise. Well, I'll talk to you later. Trying to appear casual, Xander walked back to the cockpit, then headed into the salon. Since his humans were not aboard, Xander had plenty of time to download all the information he had collected in his caller's database, then file his reports. He concluded his report on Dame Esmeralda by typing, though change can be difficult, life is about change. Sir Simon's alliance with the mongoose and herons allows him many options, which help him succeed. This all leads to new formal alliance for running Jamaica, which should equalize our ability to gain crucial information and avoid conflict. While he was not ready to include any positive comments about the potential of some dogs as allies in an official report, he intended to keep an open mind and see how Mouse progressed. The end.